So they do counter narcotics operations. Hey guys, how you doing there? It's Mitch here. It seems like every military branch, right, has their special type fighting units. You know, you have like your Navy SEALs, you have your Green Berets, you have your Delta Force, you have your U.S. Army Rangers, you have all sorts of different specialized fighting units within the unit, right? So how about Border Patrol? Do they have something like that? Well, they do. It's called BORTAC. BORTAC is what they call it, Border Patrol Tactical Unit. Very hard to get into. Today, it's about a 20% acceptance ratio from all who apply. Only 20%. So 4 out of 5 guys got to go back to the BP units where they came from. Only 1/5 stay. So BORTAC is that specialized unit. So when you think of BORTAC, right, you kind of need to think about like a SWAT team for the police. They're the same type of body that does things for on behalf of Border Patrol, right? They handle things that are called high-risk operations, right? Such as counterterrorism, they handle that, riot control, hostage rescue, yeah, that happens as well, right? And also tracking dangerous fugitives. And here's the part. They track them inside the U.S. and also outside the U.S. So they're just not domestic, right? BORTAC was founded in 1984, and they were created to deal with disturbances such as at the immigration detention centers, right? But over the decades, they have evolved, become more specialized, definitely more sophisticated, right? More intelligent, and now they are used not just inside the borders, but also international as well. BORTAC is a very powerful and known unit now within the Border Patrol, plus now it's starting to become more popular outside of Border Patrol. So what kind of tasks are they doing? Okay, so BORTAC does things like high-risk warrant services. This means they can go into other countries. Sometimes they go south of the border, sometimes they go wherever, right? But they do high-risk warrant searches. So what that means, if you understand what a high-risk warrant service is, it means it's going to go to probably the other party will have arms, maybe have their own little army. I mean, these guys are hitting some heavy-hitting, high-profile people. When you hit a high-profile person, they're going to have other people around them, right? Nobody in certain, say, walks of life who do bad things in life is ever alone. Usually have 4 or 5, 10, 20 guys around them. Well, BORTAC is trained to deal with those kind of situations, okay? So that's what they do. No, they also do counter narcotic operations. That's a heavy deal as well. You can imagine, right? You just can't do that effectively if you're only doing that domestically, right? You kind of got to go international, of course, right? Not just across the border, but also in other places as well. So they do counter narcotics operations. Another one they do is anti-terrorist operations. Yeah, they do that as well. So BORTAC is involved to some extent, you know, in these operations. Now, you or I, at this point of our lives, don't know to what extent they are involved, but these are trained personnel who can handle anti-terrorist type situations. BORTAC also helps out local and state police with emergencies, right? If they don't have the manpower to do a certain job, whatever, they will call BORTAC in because BORTAC is trained to do this. They're trained for things like this. The special arm of the Border Patrol can handle these kind of issues. That's why they get called sometimes. Also, too, they do respond to national security threats. So BORTAC is also available and ready to handle national security threats. So look, you get into this to the border patrol, the CBP, right? You get into all that, and you want to think about, you know, maybe have other goals you might want to get to, right? And so BORTAC within the border patrol is a nice goal to hit if you want to go that way, right? I mean, it's pretty cool to think about. There are other avenues you can go, right? If you say you hit that 5-year mark in BP, you know your job inside and out. Now you want a greater challenge, right? BORTAC is there, of course, right? So you have an interest in BORTAC, right? You say, okay, I want to become part of the BORTAC team. So how do I do that? Well, usually the agents that get pulled for that are seasoned agents. That's like before they have like 4 or 5, years at least into their jobs, right? And the selections are very intense, right? It includes physical endurance, not like your PFT2, but way beyond that. Physical endurance for sure. You have to have that. Tactical training. Now you have some in your academy, but this is really focused tactical training to give you all the training you need, not just for your survival, but also for your partner's survival, right? Because you got to have his or her six as well, right? That's very important. And also too, mental toughness under pressure. So yeah, your body may be good, right? But to make sure psychologically and mentally how you handle, how you deal with things under pressure. You can only have the best of the best in BORTAC. So they have to make sure if they pick you and they train you, you have to be able to pass those high measures that they have for you to become a BORTAC agent. It's just important. Okay, so now you get selected, right? And you're going through training, right? So let's talk about the training and the gear for you, of course. You as a BORTAC agent, you're giving extra training in marksmanship, right? Accuracy with your firearm. That is beyond important, right? Close quarters combat. I laugh because it's intense. You have to understand this is intense training. Yes, your academy is tough, no problem there at all. But the BORTAC training is like a whole 4 or 5 levels up there, right? You're going to do things like rappelling, right? Breaching. Breaching's a tough deal too. When you breach, you go into an unknown situation, an unknown environment. You go through the door or to a situation, you're going from a known environment where your partners are all there into an unknown. Could be a house, could be a tunnel, could be whatever, right? But you're the only one there who's new, you and your team. Who's ever on the other side, they know everything. They know every corner, every little hole to hide on, every little corner to hang around on. They know all that. You're the newbie there in that situation. So of course, going to show you how to do perfect breaching. Surveillance. Definitely a big part of your role as a BORTAC agent is to understand and how to make effective surveillance. That's a huge issue as well. So then you're going to get certain gear, not just rifles, right? People think, oh, I'll have some guns. Yeah, you'll be trained in that too for sure. Rifles and guns, that's great. But you're also going to be trained in things like night vision, right? Tactical vehicles. Yeah, tactical vehicles. How to drive them, how to use them to your advantage, how to use them for defensive and also offensive measures as well, right? And you're also going to have to learn how to deal with working in extreme environments. Already, if you look at it, it's not just the Southwest, right? It could be extreme cold environments too, right? A BORTAC agent has to be used to be ready for all these things, not just the hot desert sun, but also could be cold, rainy, windy, whatever, right? You have to be out there doing it. And also too, they're going to train you for dangerous situations. Now, when people say dangerous for a BORTAC agent, that means you maybe know half of what's going on, maybe 3/4, right? There's always that bit of the unknown, which makes it dangerous. This is why they train you. That's why they're so serious about training you, because they know that they're not sure what you might be walking into. But the better trained you are, right, the better you can adapt to any situation you're going to walk into. Understand? So when you're thinking about the Border Patrol career, right, and there's steps in place, of course, right? You turn in your application, right? You take the written test, you go for the interview, right? The physical, the background check, the polygraph, and then you go to the academy, all those steps, right? BORTAC and all that stuff doesn't start until you get past the exam. In the link below, I have a 115 question exam for you. That's your first step. None of that happens until you pass your exam. My exam has a 91.3% success rate. So what do I mean by that? I mean that 91.3% of people who take my test and then take the actual exam pass the first time, okay? So here we are. So how do you join BORTAC, okay? How do you join that? Well, again, remember I said season. You have to have have some seasoning behind you, 4 or 5 years, of course, right? And so what they also want to is that they only take the most disciplined people, the most skilled and the most dedicated are chosen. So if you truly understand when you're in your 4 or 5, 6 years as a BP agent, if you're focused on being the best you can be every single day, not getting into nonsense, right? Keeping your nose clean, enforcing those CBP policies every single day, being a good role model. So when you apply, you look really good. So here's what I'm trying to tell you. Listen carefully. If BORTAC is your goal, 4 or 5 years, right? When you get into the job itself, into the career itself, you start your career as a Border Patrol agent. Your first day there, you are starting to work on your resume, not a written resume, your reputational resume. Your reputation as a BP agent from day one to the day you get into or you try to join the BORTAC, it's going to speak for itself. Your name will speak for itself. You understand how critical that is? No one cares if you have 15 degrees or if you were a Green Beret for 98 years. That's not important. What's important is that your reputation as a BP agent from day one until the day you apply for BORTAC, that's what they're looking at, understand? And you have to think about that because it's so hard today. People just think about tomorrow. I don't want you thinking about tomorrow. I want you to think about, if you want to be a BORTAC agent, think about every day how you do your job and you look down the road 4 or 5 years, that's where I want to be. That's how you got to do it, understand? So that's how you become a BORTAC agent. You are building your resume, right? You're building your resume while you're working. You're building your reputation while you're working. I know I'm getting into this a lot, but I'm just trying to tell you that's the truth, right? The best BORTAC agents have good reputations before they even apply. That's how that works, okay? So sometimes people think, well, why does BORTAC matter? Like, why do they have BORTAC? Because the Border Patrol wanted their own high-level tactical response team. They don't want to have to borrow from SWAT or borrow from here, whatever, right? Since 1984, they are a well-tuned machine now. They really know what's going on. It's a proud unit to be part of. BORTAC is just incredible. They are the go-to team that requires speed, strategy, and a lot of skill sets each person has within that team. BORTAC is often, I know BP agents are on the front line. BORTAC is also on the front line, if not further on that front line, right? They're really out there doing amazing things. So if you're thinking about joining the Border Patrol and working your way up to BORTAC, I want you to think about this. You have to pass the exam first, guys. You have to score well on that exam to start going to your interview, to go to your physical, to go to everything else, right? The exam is key. People who just take the exam without studying for it first do not pass at a 34% rate. They just don't pass. They got to do it again. Folks who take my exam below, right, pass at a 91% rate. Also in my exam too is a link to a full interview from start to finish. 34 minutes of you getting all the answers you need. How to walk in there, how to talk, so on and so forth. It's all in there for you, okay? It's designed to make sure you succeed. Please, I want you to really consider BORTAC as a goal for yourself because it's an elite unit within Border Patrol. Just making the border agent, patrol agent, that's awesome, right? That's really cool. Our CBP officer, that's really cool too. That's incredible because you guys are on the front line. No doubt about it. That's a highly respectable job. No doubt about that. But if you're like a stress eater, right? We call them stress eaters in the military. If you want to do some really crazy stuff, right? Think about BORTAC. If you're serious about BORTAC, then start building your reputation once you become an agent, right? But to become an agent, you got to pass that test. Link below, okay? You guys, please subscribe, hit the like. I really would appreciate that. I want to hear how many of you are even considering BORTAC or how many of you have even heard about BORTAC, right? Let me know in the comments below. But BORTAC is cool stuff, all right? Take care. Bye-bye.